Let's go. You lead the way. Where are we headed? Towards a net zero future, of course. Cleaner water, more electricity, a sustainable society. That's the destination we've set ourselves. This we know. Yes, we know exactly where we're going, but we need to get there quicker. So, let's build on the progress we've already made by working and walking together. With the right partners, tools and ideas, we'll become an unstoppable force. This we know. Right now, there are businesses who are putting technology and sustainability at the heart of everything they do. Brave leaders turning maybes into realities and building something better for everyone. Now is the time to look to the future and reinvent ourselves today, empowering others to do the same tomorrow. Yes, we know what the future holds, and we know how to get there. So, let's take charge of the journey today.
Welcome to our school board meeting.
Namaskar.
Hello.
Hi.
Spiffio, access in any language.
Hello and good afternoon from St Helen's School here in London. It's great to be with you here at T4's World Education Week, and we're so excited to share our unique Nudge for Learning programme, which is all about bringing the behavioural sciences into our schools and into the classroom. We've seen dramatic results in every aspect of school life, and this is a school where we offer the Oxbridge learning experience. And we want to share our guiding principles because we believe that they can be replicated by schools across the world in a way that is easy, attractive, social and timely, and at very little cost. So joining me today are Alice Lucas, our headmistress here at St Helens. We also have Elizabeth Henner, our head of English and a mentoring expert. And our third speaker is Sanaz Thomas, a teacher of chemistry and an expert coach. If you like what you hear and want to share our ideas, please use the hashtag WorldEduWeek and our Twitter handle, which is @St.Helens-School. We're looking forward to hearing your questions later on, and we'll open the floor to get a good exchange of ideas going. Feel free to add your comments into the chat, and we can pick those up as we go along. It now gives me enormous pleasure to introduce our headmistress, Alice Lucas, who will give us the big picture of what St. Helens is all about and how Nudge for Learning has shown that small changes really do make a huge difference. Over to you, Alice.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone from London, and where there's obviously quite a lot going on politically, but there's also masses going on in the education sector, and especially at our school, which is in northwest London. We're an academic, single-sex, all-through school, and we are selective and academic, and all sorts of things are going on in terms of our application of behavioural science to education. So our mission for all the girls at our school is that they will be brave and true, and they'll be ever intellectually curious. We want them all to explore how they can best interact with the world around them and really make a difference for the better. And we want them to be excited about their own learning and always asking the question why. And our Nudge for Learning programme has helped us to achieve all of those aims in very tangible ways. So our teachers as academic mentors use nudges, both in the classroom and in academic supervisions. And that takes the learning of all the children to another level. Our educational philosophy is teach to the top and scaffold down. We want our students to learn for the sake of learning, for the love of learning. And our use of behavioural science really makes that a reality. And our pastoral team, they use nudges in coaching sessions with the girls. So all of our teachers are professionally trained in using our powerful coaching model. And in that, as part of that, the girls are nudged to work out who they are, what they want, and how to get there. And our use of nudge theory in these two quite specific ways has really transformed our school. It's transformed our school environment in terms of academic excellence for all, and also the nurturing pastoral care, which empowers all of our students. And it means that they're ready for the lives ahead of them. They get the academic results that will open the doors that they need open, and they will be ready to go through those doors with confidence and aplomb to make a difference. And I'd like to show you now a short video that will give you greater insight into our Nudge for Learning programme and show it in action with some of our teachers and some of our students. So I'm going to show you this video now.
For every girl at St. Helens, life at school is about taking risks and pushing the boundaries. Every step of the way, we are nudged to become brave and true, virtues that we see modelled in our teachers every day. In our school, teachers are not just teachers. Every week, they mentor us in short, intense, Oxbridge-style supervisions, which promote critical thinking and curiosity as we explore new ideas way beyond the standard curriculum.
If you're thinking it's a known substance and you want to compare it to a known substance, you can use RF values. And if you're using gas chromatography, rather than RF values, you use what we call retention times.
At St. Helens, I think what we're about here is teaching to the student. It's about teaching to the pupil and drawing out their love of learning.
To help them pursue knowledge because they want to acquire knowledge and they want to see how one thing leads to another and to another, and make those connections and be analytical and evaluative and all those skills that we know are so important. And then the exam results would come in the slipstream of that. The HIT programme is taking that to another level.
We are in charge of this learning. The sessions are based on a demanding article or an academic lecture on a chosen topic. Our job is to immerse ourselves in these ideas and come ready to discuss. There's no hiding, and everyone has a voice.
Don't fear to be eccentric, because every belief that was once considered eccentric is now accepted. And I think that that's reflected in how, to make an informed decision, you need to hear everyone's opinion.
We want to create a more holistic experience. And so we've introduced the mentor and mentee relationship. That mentoring relationship recognizes that we can bring down the barriers between the teacher-student, get rid of that power imbalance, and actually start to have these really interesting conversations.
We don't want the teachers to tell the children what to do, because that has been proved not to work. We want the teachers to provide a structure and to provide a motivation for the children to find things out for themselves.
Our mentors give us the autonomy to present on subjects we're passionate about, debating with our friends as we build on each other's arguments. Every term, we are offered dozens of academic challenges to take up, pursuing our intellectual interests in a meaningful way.
Learning is a lifelong process, whereas education doesn't necessarily happen with an institution or an entity, but it requires the systematic handing down of objective knowledge.
When we started out our Nudge for Learning program, we saw that the lowest value added we had was from our top tier students. Over the last 3 years, through this HIT program and through Nudge for Learning and the principles of teaching to the top, we were hugely gratified to see our best A-level results yet. We saw the highest value added for our Band A students, for our top students, which again, it raises the point that not only do we get to inspire our top students through teaching to the top, but it just shows everyone else what they're capable of, and they got some fantastic grades as well. So the evidence absolutely is there.
St Helens is all about empowering us to be the best versions of ourselves. So our teachers are also our coaches. They want to bring out our inner confidence and help us become challengers and change makers. Coaching is one-on-one, allowing us to focus on our goals in an ambitious and targeted way. We set the goals, so we're accountable for achieving them. As our teachers know us so well, they can provide the questions to help nudge us in the right direction.
It's very much about the coach asking open questions that encourage the coachee to think about their priorities, to think about things that are happening in their life that they want to change, and just gently nudging them towards identifying a way forward in terms of bringing about that change in their own lives.
It's almost magical to see how they find the answers themselves. And they're more likely to stick to what it is that they want to achieve if it comes from them than us dictating, you should do this, this or that.
At St Helens, we know we'll be ready for whatever the future brings. We'll be brave and true.
Thanks so much. So with that video, we've seen St Helens in practice. And what we'd like to do now is really to take you through to the theory, to share with you the ideas behind the behavioral sciences and nudge theory and what got us so excited. So if we put up the screen, I'm first going to share with you a nice little story. And this is a story from the 18th century. And believe it or not, our inspiration comes from potatoes. And so a really interesting story is told of Frederick the Great, who, when there was a risk of famine, wanted to introduce the potato, which has just been brought over from South America by Spanish explorers. Now, whilst potatoes are easy to grow and they're promised to be a vital new food source, the problem is potatoes aren't so attractive. And so when people saw them, especially when they saw them for the first time back in the 18th century, no one really wanted to eat them. They were frightened of them. As the town of Kolberg in Prussia reported, these potatoes have neither smell nor taste. Not even the dogs will eat them. So what use are they to us? And so Frederick the Great later became known as the Potato King because he did something very clever, very savvy. And what he decided to do were two things. The first was to rename the potato as the royal potato. So he gave it gravitas. It gave it an interesting sparkle to its name. And then something else that he did, which was really interesting, was to ban anyone from growing the potato. In fact, he made the rule that potatoes could only be grown on royal grounds. And he set guards all around these grounds to make sure that no one would steal them. But the guards were basically told to turn a blind eye to anyone that did. And lo and behold, before long, everyone started stealing these potatoes and growing them for themselves because they started to become attractive. If they're called royal potato, then surely there must be something fantastic in them. And indeed, the potatoes took off and we have never looked back since. And so what we learn from this story, and indeed from nudges generally, are 4 principles that we want to start off on. The first principle is little things can make a big difference. We've seen just by calling the potato the royal potato, all of a sudden that made it so attractive. And principle 2, there's no such thing as neutrality. Even the names we give things, how we present different ideas, will have a huge impact on how people relate to those ideas. And so the notion that we could be neutral, or there is simply an easy starting point from which everyone can start off from, well, perhaps that's not so true after all. How we present ideas really do make an impact on people's take-up of those very ideas. Principle 3, we saw that Frederick the Great made potatoes exclusive. He made sure, not only did he call it the royal potato, but that he barred anyone else from growing these mysterious new vegetables. And by making something exclusive, well, that only adds to the attraction, it only adds to the mystique surrounding whatever it is we're trying to sell. And then finally, principle 4, it's that old age idea that people love to rebel, not just our students, but all of us. And so if we can tap into that notion of rebellion, then perhaps we're going to go that bit further as well. So if those 4 principles together, we can start to bring about these interesting nudges that can make a huge difference to what we can offer our students here at school. And nudge theory has been a key part of the behavioral sciences that indeed won Richard Thaler the Nobel Prize in economics. And to explain nudge theory, here's a nice little summation. A nudge theory is any aspect of the choice architecture that alters people's behavior in a predictable way, without forbidding any options or significantly changing their economic incentives. To count as a mere nudge, the intervention must be easy and cheap to avoid. And so what's really important about nudge theory is that ethically, we are not banning any notion of choice. We are not preventing anyone from ultimately making the choices that they want to make. But we are simply radically altering the choice architecture before our students and before any stakeholder so that they can be presented with these choices in a way in which they can understand exactly what is in their best interest. But ultimately, the choice is up to them. And so the final principle that we wanted to share, principle 5 today, is that if we want to go about changing behaviors, we'd be much better off by changing the environment, not the person. Even on a pastoral level, we often tell our students, don't we, that you can't change your friends, but you can always change your friends. In other words, it's very hard to change their behaviors of the people that we know about us. But perhaps if we changed our very environments itself, then we can start to get the results that we want to see. And we believe that's very true, not just on a friendship level, not just on a pastoral level, but absolutely goes to the heart of the academic choices that our students are making. And so if we can start to alter the environment, to think about the environments that our students are in, from the very simple everyday, from the prosaic, right down to the fundamental structures of school life, then we think that magical things are going to start happening. And so there are 4 perhaps takeaways to help guide the nudges that you might want to bring into your schools. And as we go through these, we'll show and share with you the sort of nudges that we've introduced in our school that you've already seen on our video. And so David Halpern, who was head of the nudge unit here in London, Alice spoke about the changing political times, but nudge theory has still remained steady, even at the heart of government, and we hope it will only grow in the educational sector as well. And David Halpern has come up with this very neat, easy guide called East. And what we're saying is always head east in the nudges that you want to introduce in the school context, and that can only help you think about what nudges would work for your students, because we know that you're best placed to have the expertise on your own school environment. So first of all, when it comes to nudges, make sure they're easy. People are much more likely to do something if it's easy and low hassle. So, for example, we know that our students already deal with a huge cognitive load. They've got so much to remember, they've got so much to learn. And so if we can bring the sort of work and the sort of challenges to their fingertips, so we make it easy on them to choose what challenges they'd like to take on, then we're doing half the work for them. So here at St Helens, we've created these unique academic challenge booklets that we present to our students every half term. These challenge booklets have the most fantastic challenges that we generate internally. All of our departments are involved with. And so just at the flip of a wrist, they can turn through all these academic challenges that are before them. We also download all fantastic challenges that might be coming out from university and other partner organizations that could be tailor-made for our students. And so just by putting it in these very attractive academic booklets, we make it easy for our students to choose. It becomes hassle-free, and they are more than happy to take up these challenges. And the result has been quite transformative here at St Helens. Nudges also have to be attractive. People, just like we saw with the potatoes, the royal potatoes made all the difference. People want to be drawn to that which catches their attention. Right here now in London, we're on half term, and so people may have gone away. And when you go to that unfamiliar place, and perhaps you're want to catch a bite for dinner, and you see two restaurants in front of you. One is all packed out and looks like the fun place to be, and one across the road seems that bit empty. Well, we know which one we're going to be drawn to. We're going to be drawn to the attractive one, the buzzing one, that restaurant that whets our appetite. And so too with education, that absolutely is the same as well. And so we know here in the UK and worldwide that the renowned Oxbridge style supervisions is something that attracts attention. That's something that many of our own teachers have been through. And so we wanted to bring those Oxbridge style supervisions that are world renowned right here in the heart of our school day. And so we've tailor-made, we've nudged these supervisions so they are ideal for our own students, for them to learn in a collaborative way with mentors that are expert in their subjects. And so not only are our students having these fantastic one-to-ones with their mentors, but they're in these fantastic supervisions with like-minded peers, where it becomes cool to learn. It becomes cool to be interested about everything that's going on in the world, whether the timely issues that perhaps our students are facing, or the timeless, interesting ideas that have drawn the finest thinkers throughout the ages. Third, it is always best for our nudges to be social. We know that all of us, especially students, are so heavily influenced by what their peers are doing. Peer pressure can sometimes be negative, but we know it can be hugely positive as well. And so when schools work in harmony, not just with our students, but with all stakeholders, including our parents, our governors, and the local community, that harmony can start to bring some really magical results. And so whether it's sharing the best of our ideas with our parents through unique webinars so that they come along on our learning journey, that's been hugely influential in helping our parents support the very messages that we're trying to bring along. And certainly during COVID, when we couldn't get those face-to-face interactions, we know that webinars, those online meetings, have become more important than ever. And that allows us to spread our ideas with partner schools, just like we're doing right now at T4's fantastic World Education Week. So thinking about the social ways in which we can connect with our students and with other partners can really boost the educational offering that we can provide. And finally, our nudges have to be timely. Interventions are far more effective before those habits are formed. On behavior may be disrupted for other reasons. And so we have these young people who are so eager to come into our school to learn. And so as we think about the sort of habits that we're developing, the sort of characteristics that we want to nurture in our students, well, what can be more timely than that? And so as we think very strategically about those ideas, we know that we can help form the best within our students. And so we've developed a unique coaching program for our students, which empowers them to take control of not only their own learning, but their own wider major decisions of life, thinking about where they want to be headed and to make those smart choices and be coached along the way by caring and well-trained teachers right here at St. Helens. And so with that background, with those nudges, those East nudges that we've spoken about, those easy, attractive, social and timely nudges, it gives me great pleasure to welcome in two resident experts. We first will have Elizabeth, who is our head of English and a mentoring expert. And we also have Sanaz, teacher of chemistry, and our resident coaching experts as well. So if we can turn to Elizabeth first, and if you could tell us, please, about the fantastic work that you've been doing as a mentor. And specifically, Elizabeth, could you tell us how that nudge in your role as a mentor rather than as a teacher has changed the dynamic between you and your mentees in these Oxbridge-style supervisions?
So the first thing I would say is it's become habitual remarkably quickly. It's now routine for these students to join me in the library once per week. All I need to do is send them out a bit of prep reading of something that's particularly interesting. And actually, it really reminds me of kind of more sort of Oxbridge dinners, I suppose, where you'd be sitting around with people who have all sorts of different interests, all sorts of disciplines that their expertise that they wish to explore. And it's one of those aspects that makes it very different from being a teacher, because really I'm there to facilitate their kind of conversations, to make sure that it's really attractive to be having these potentially kind of quite nerdy or quite academic or quite political or just very different kind of conversations, even things that are kind of slightly outside their comfort zone. So if I give you an example, which seems now like very ancient history, we looked at the resignation speech of Boris Johnson. And in particular, what I challenged them to do was to explore the speech with their own expertise and disciplines in mind. So what they found particularly interesting about what he was asserting was the success of his premiership. Say, for example, they were particularly interested in healthcare or renewable energy or interesting, particularly esoteric classical niche allusions. They could go away and explore the kind of meaning behind the speech, and it enabled every single one of them to explore their own interests. They could explore it with each other, they could debate, they could discuss, and really I was there to bring them in, to listen to them, or maybe to suggest a completely different angle. So yes, for example, we might want to consider what was being asserted factually, but also to consider the rhetoric, the narrative, how much the narrative might actually overcome the facts and how quickly history changes. And it's just so lovely to see young people leading the discussion, sharing their own interests, and really enjoying, exactly as you said, they find it very sociable. They find it very attractive. And that's one of the things that's really different about being a mentor to a teacher, I think.
Elizabeth, that's hugely inspiring. Thank you so much. And it's really interesting because a key aim for us is to make our students the best dinner party guests that you could hope to sit down with. And that's clearly happening in those sessions that you are having with your students. So thank you so much. Sanaz, just before I turn to you, just to let our audience know that soon, after we speak to Elizabeth and Sanaz, we'll be turning to the audience for your questions. So please do bring them in, and we're happy to share our ideas so that we can hopefully make Nudge for Learning that bit more relevant for your own schools, and thinking about how you can bring them into the classroom wherever you are around the world. Sanaz, if you could take us through your resident experts here in pastoral care and coaching, and can you tell us how the role of a coach, perhaps, rather than as a teacher, has changed the dynamic between you and your students, and how they, as coachees, can help develop their own pastoral care? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I'd like to start off by saying that the coach-coachee dynamic is an extremely powerful tool for nurturing pastoral care. And I'm going to explain why in 3 parts. Firstly, by guiding the student to reflect on their own behaviours, one can prove strength of character. Secondly, by building resilience, which can foster high levels of self-belief. And thirdly, by promoting independent learning skills. This is because we don't tell the student what to do or what's best for them, but actually guide them in considering their options so that they can decide on the actions that they're going to take. All of which I think is integral for a positive future.
Thank you so much, Sanaz. And with that fantastic background, could you tell us how this works in reality? Take us through the nuts and bolts of your coaching sessions.
Okay, so recently I've had 2 scenarios which I can share with you, which are relevant. So the first being, within the HIP groups, we have exceptional students with off-the-scale abilities in various different areas. And students can sometimes be faced with what I like to call imposter syndrome, where they don't feel like they are as sharp or as able as the others. Quite frankly, it's something that can happen to anyone at any stage of their life. And by using the GROW model, we've been able to work through some of these challenges. Another example would be choosing the right career path. So I recently used the GROW model to work with a student who has wanted to be a doctor since they were, 3 years old. And at the final hurdle, when they've been asked to demonstrate and justify why they'd make a good doctor in an essay about themselves, they've really struggled with whether this is actually the right choice for them. And, what if they change their mind after what will be a grueling 6-year degree for a specific career path? Again, here, this coach-coachee relationship has been crucial in allowing the student to make progress in their decision-making. I really don't think these are trivial problems. And the last thing we would want is anyone sleepwalking their way into a certain career path. In short, the student has learned that questioning her choices is a healthy thing to do and not necessarily something to be afraid of.
That's wonderful, Sanaz. Thank you so much. And so our students really take charge of their own learning and also their own life choices. And from what you've spoken about there, that sounds so empowering. So huge thanks to you. So we're going to open up now our discussion to our audience. And we already have a question that's come in. And this is from Dominique. So thank you so much, Dominique, for this question. And we'll turn to Alice. Alice, Dominique wants to know, is there a tendency for your students to then aspire to continue their education at Oxford and Cambridge universities? Alice, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yes, Dominique, thank you. That's such an interesting question. What we've seen with this programme is that every single student is really working out for themselves where they want to go and setting themselves the very highest aspirations. And for some students, that might be going to study at Oxford or Cambridge. It might be going to study at a university in America, possibly one of the Ivies or MIT or some such. It might be that they want to do something quite different from that, which is just as aspirational and really fits with their own interpersonal aspirations and dreams. So I think it's about empowering the student, first of all, to take control of their own lives. So rather than necessarily maybe doing what their parents want or what their school might want, they're really thinking about what do they want as individuals. And then it's not setting the bar as high as it can possibly go. So they're realizing their intellectual strengths in every one of these academic conversations that they're having. They're realizing that the potential that they have is extraordinary. And together, by collaborating, each one of them is becoming so much more than they were before as individuals, so that they have that confidence and they have that, kind of integral drive to make things happen for themselves. So that might take them to Oxford or Cambridge, if that's where they want to go. It might take them to all sorts of places. We hope that it's going to take them to making a difference in the world around them.
Thanks so much, Alice. That is wonderful to hear. Perhaps as a follow-up question, we could ask Elizabeth. As Alice pointed out, there are so many different paths that students might wish to follow. How in your mentoring sessions can you provide that bespoke guidance? That seems a real challenge. How have you managed to overcome such challenges to make sure that all of your students are able to pursue their own areas of interest?
Well, I think particularly from a mentoring point of view, just to follow on from what Alice said, really, is that it begins from 12 years old, really, to be able to understand exactly what their interests are, which is why it's really useful having a range of challenges, a range of topics in our mentoring meetings, so that they can explore maybe what they think they're interested in, but also learn about other interests and potentially things they've never even heard of before. So one of the articles that actually one of our HIP students ended up publishing following from a mentoring meeting. There is, I happen to know a perfumer who did chemistry at Oxbridge, but was really interested in fashion. And in fact, becoming a perfumer is more niche than actually becoming an astronaut, for example. So it was something that students didn't necessarily even know about, that we are able to put in front of them so that they know that they can look at fashion and chemistry and what they would need to do at Oxbridge, and that it wouldn't necessarily just be medicine, and that they could travel the world. And so it's just really presenting them with lots of different options, lots of different opportunities, allowing them to explore, discuss, learn more about themselves. And when coupled with coaching, exactly as Sana said, it enables them to really think about the choices that they themselves are making.
That's hugely helpful, thank you. And that's a nice segue to perhaps pick up on the coaching elements. A couple of questions have come through, Sanaz, for you. Again, just how, in practical terms, if you could let us know how often you meet with your coachees, and what was your own training to help you undergo your role, and are there any resources perhaps that you could share with other schools? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Yeah, so basically to start off with what we use and what the students are familiar with. So we use the same model. Obviously, the coach has that model. The coachee has the same model. It's the T-GROW model. And it's a very, very, very simple tool. So very easy to kind of record in your brain, keep there. And not just whilst you're at school, but like I said, for the rest of your life. These challenges that you might need to navigate your way around, obstacles, goals, targets, anything, you can reuse it over and over again. It's great. So you've got basically a topic. The student comes in, they use the same model. So they come in with a topic, or like I said, a challenge, a goal, a target, something that they want to talk about. And then they sort of reflect on where they are. What is my current situation? What is my current position? And they consider that. And then they sort of think about where they ideally want to be. And then it all has to come from them. But then they sort of think about actions they might take, certain positions they might be in, to try and think about how they're going to navigate their way around the obstacle or the challenge, or to ascertain that goal or target. So as I said, it's called the T-GROW model, and it's brilliant. And with respect to how often we meet up, so we meet up for a very long session, once a month, or once every 6 weeks, depending on our timetable and the calendar. And that will be a longer session. And then we sort of tap in once every sort of 3 weeks after that, just to see, right, where are you at? What have you done since we last met? Where are we at? And, where are we going, basically? So yeah, that's what we do.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So lovely balance there in allowing the students to very much determine their own pathway, but the teachers are there, the coaches are there, and the mentors as well to help guide them. So what we'd like to do now is to really leave you with our 5 key takeaways. If we could share the screen, please. And with these key takeaways, we hope that all schools across the world will think about the nudges that would work for them. So as we've really emphasized in this session, keep it easy, attractive, social, and timely. Make sure your nudges very much fit in to that framework. We know within education that pretty much all interventions work. But if they're easy, attractive, social, and timely, we can make sure that you're using your staff members' time as most efficiently and as effectively as possible. Take risks. Nudges may sometimes not necessarily work, but the willingness to take those risks and to work out what works best for your environment is really so important. And you should have the confidence to be aware that you know your own school environment best. And so you should think about collaboratively what nudges will work for you. And we're the first to say that perhaps what works for an independent girls' school right here in London may not work for another school around the world with a very different social context. So absolutely, whilst those universal principles are really important to keep in mind, the local context is equally important. Look beyond education. We think we've managed to become so innovative in our own practices because we've looked at the world around us beyond the educational sphere to think about what are the ideas around the world that are making the difference and how can they be used within an educational context to impact our students and their learning journey. Number 4 is to bring everyone on board. Communicate clearly with all stakeholders. Perhaps as new world events show us, even if you're right, if you don't communicate your message with everyone, well, ultimately, you'll be proven wrong because you need to bring everyone on board and to share that message. So clarity and transparency are absolutely what it's about. And that is such an important part for the success story that these nudges can bring to your school. And then finally, as we've said before, a key principle is aim to change the environment, not people. You know, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a parent, good luck to you trying to change those young people that you're in charge of, that you're responsible for, because we know we are however we are. But if we can change the environment perhaps around us, if we can nudge certain ideas, then that can start to get the notice of the people that we're trying to influence for the better, namely our students, and hopefully by that focus on the environment, ultimately that can bring out the best in our students. So with those 5 key takeaways, we know that any school around the world can really take up these ideas and bring in the behavioral sciences to really transform the school's environment that they are in. And so with that, we'd like to really say a huge thanks to T4 World Education Week for giving us this fantastic opportunity to share our ideas on a global level. We have been so excited these past few years to see the huge and enormous real impact that our Nudge for Learning ideas have made in all aspects of key life, which we've been able to share with you today. And we want this conversation really just to begin here at World Edu Week. So we're on Twitter. Feel free to use the hashtag World Edu Week. And also at St. Helen's School, do use our Twitter handle so that we can carry on that conversation with you wherever you are throughout the world. So it just leaves me to say, first of all, a huge thank to our host, to T4, but also to my fellow presenters here today, to Alice Lucas, our headmistress, thank you, and to Elizabeth Henner, our mentoring expert and head of English, and to Sanaz Thomas, teacher of chemistry and coaching expert. Thank you all very much. And thanks to everyone out there, to our audience. We really are grateful for your questions, and we look forward to hearing from you in the days and weeks ahead. That's it from us at St. Helens. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of World Edu Week. Thank you. Bye-bye.